Matthew 26, the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. It was the night of the Passover. Jesus, fully aware of what was to come, sat with his disciples. He looked at them and said, "You know that 2 days from now, the Passover will take place, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be executed." Meanwhile, in the dimly lit halls of the chief priests, a sinister plot was unfolding. They conspired to seize Jesus and kill him, but they feared the people, saying, "Not during the festival, so that there may not be an uproar among the people." At Bethany, Jesus reclined at the table of Simon the leper. A woman approached with an alabaster jar of expensive oil. She poured it on his head. Some disciples murmured in disapproval, saying, "Why this waste? This oil could have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, "Why do you bother the woman? She did a fine deed toward me. You always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfumed oil on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial." Elsewhere in the shadows, Judas Iscariot sought out the chief priests. "What will you give me if I hand him over to you?" he asked. They paid him 30 silver pieces. From that moment, Judas looked for an opportunity to betray him. That evening, Jesus and his disciples gathered for the Passover meal. As they ate, Jesus looked at them and solemnly declared, "One of you will betray me." A wave of sorrow filled the room. One by one they asked, "Lord, is it I?" Jesus answered, "The one who dips his hand with me in the bowl will betray me." Then Judas, who was about to betray him, asked, "Is it I, Rabbi?" Jesus looked at him and said, "You yourself said it." Jesus took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "Take, eat. This means my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and said, "Drink out of it, all of you, for this means my blood of the covenant, which is to be poured out in behalf of many for forgiveness of sins." Then they sang praises and went to the Mount of Olives. Turning to his disciples, Jesus said, "All of you will be stumbled because of me tonight. For it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.' But after I have been raised up, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter, passionate and bold, declared, "Even if all the others are stumbled because of you, I will never be stumbled." Jesus turned to him and said, "Truly I say to you, before a rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." Peter protested, "Even if I have to die with you, I will by no means disown you." And all the disciples said the same. Then they went to Gethsemane. Jesus, deeply troubled, said, "My soul is deeply grieved even to death. Stay here and keep on the watch with me." Moving a little farther, he fell face down and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass away from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Returning to his disciples, he found them asleep. "Could you not stay awake with me 1 hour?" he asked. A second and third time he prayed. Then the betrayer arrived. Judas, leading a crowd armed with swords and clubs, approached Jesus and greeted him with a kiss. Jesus asked, "Judas, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" The soldiers seized him. Peter, drawing his sword, struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his ear. Jesus stopped him, saying, "Return your sword to its place, for all those who take the sword will perish by the sword." The disciples fled, and Jesus was taken before the Sanhedrin. False witnesses arose. The high priest demanded, "Tell us, are you the Christ, the Son of God?" Jesus answered, "You yourself said it. But I say to you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his garments. "Blasphemy!" he cried. They spit on Jesus, struck him, and mocked him. Meanwhile, Peter sat outside. A servant girl recognized him and said, "You were also with Jesus." Peter denied it. 2 more times people accused him of being a follower of Jesus, and he denied it. Then a rooster crowed. Peter remembered Jesus' words and went outside, weeping bitterly. The trial, death, and resurrection of Jesus, a detailed and dramatic account of Matthew 27. The events of Matthew 27 unfold like a tragic yet triumphant drama. filled with betrayal, injustice, suffering, and ultimate victory. Let's journey through the final moments of Jesus before his execution and the events that followed. Jesus before Pilate, the unjust trial. After being seized in Gethsemane, Jesus was led in chains to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. The religious leaders, filled with envy, presented false accusations against him. Pilate, sitting in his judgment seat, asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus simply responded, "You yourself say it." Despite the mounting accusations hurled at him by the chief priests and elders, Jesus remained silent, astonishing Pilate. He saw no guilt in him, but was caught in a political storm. Meanwhile, Judas, the betrayer, was overwhelmed with guilt. He returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests, confessing, "I sinned when I betrayed innocent blood." But they coldly replied, "What is that to us? You see to it?" In despair, Judas threw the silver coins into the temple and, unable to bear his guilt, took his own life. The religious leaders, not wanting to put blood money back into the temple treasury, used it to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners, thus fulfilling prophecy. The crowd chooses Barabbas. It was Pilate's custom during Passover to release a prisoner of the people's choosing. Before the crowd stood two men, Jesus, the innocent Son of God, and Barabbas, a notorious criminal. Pilate, hoping to spare Jesus, asked, "Whom do you want me to release to you, Barabbas, or Jesus, who is called Christ?" At that moment, Pilate's wife sent him an urgent message. "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I suffered much today in a dream because of him." But the religious leaders stirred the crowd, shouting, "Barabbas! Release Barabbas!" Pilate was stunned. "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" The crowd roared, "Impale him! Crucify him!" Pilate, seeing that the uproar was getting out of control, took water, washed his hands, and declared, "I'm innocent of this man's blood. You yourselves bear the responsibility." The people shouted, "His blood be on us and our children." So Pilate released Barabbas and handed Jesus over to be scourged and executed. The brutal mocking of Jesus. Roman soldiers dragged Jesus into the governor's palace and gathered the entire garrison. They stripped him, placed a scarlet robe on him, twisted a crown of thorns, and pressed it onto his head. They mocked him, kneeling before him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him, struck him with a reed, and continued their cruel taunts. After their brutal humiliation, they put his own garments back on him and led him out to be executed. The agonizing journey to Golgotha. As Jesus carried his pole toward Golgotha, his strength began to fail. The soldiers forced Simon of Cyrene to carry the pole for him. Arriving at the place of execution, they offered Jesus wine mixed with gall to drink, but he refused it. Then, in an act of ultimate cruelty, lifting him between two criminals, above his head a sign read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." The crowd, the priests, and even the criminals hurled insults at him. He saved others. He cannot save himself, they sneered. But Jesus endured it all in silence. The darkest hour, Jesus' death at noon, an unnatural darkness fell over the land, lasting for 3 hours. Then, in his final moments, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Shortly after, he said, "It is finished." With his last breath, Jesus yielded up his spirit. At that moment, the temple curtain was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked, rocks split apart, and graves were opened. The Roman centurion, witnessing these events, exclaimed, "Surely this was God's Son." The burial of Jesus, a wealthy disciple, Joseph of Arimathea, courageously approached Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Pilate granted his request, and Joseph, along with Nicodemus, wrapped Jesus in fine linen and placed him in a new tomb cut into a rock. A large stone was rolled over the entrance, and Roman soldiers were stationed to guard it. The resurrection, victory over death. At dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to Jesus' tomb. Suddenly a great earthquake struck, and an angel of Jehovah descended from heaven, rolled away the stone and sat upon it. His appearance was dazzling like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards trembled in fear and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know you are looking for Jesus who was executed. He is not here, for he has been raised up, just as he said. Come, see the place." Meanwhile, the chief priests, desperate to suppress the truth, bribed the guards to spread the false report that Jesus' disciples had stolen his body. The Great Commission, before ascending to heaven, Jesus appeared to his disciples and gave them a powerful command. "All authority has been given me in heaven and on the earth. Go therefore and make disciples of people of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all the things I have commanded you. And look, I am with you all the days until the conclusion of the system of things." With these words, Jesus' mission on earth was complete. He had conquered death, fulfilled prophecy, and paved the way for salvation. They nailed him to the stake. If he is God's Son, let him come down from the stake. The events of Matthew 27 are among the most powerful in all of history. Jesus, though innocent, willingly endured betrayal, injustice, torture, and death, all to fulfill Jehovah's purpose. But his resurrection proved that he was the promised Messiah, bringing hope to all who put faith in him. Would you have stood with Jesus or among those calling for his death? Let this account remind us of his sacrifice and the victory that followed. Now go forth and share this powerful story. The resurrection of Jesus, a dramatic Bible narration, Matthew 28. The night had been long, and sorrow hung in the air. The disciples were still mourning, their hearts heavy with grief. But as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, something miraculous was about to unfold. It was early in the morning on the first day of the week. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary made their way to the tomb. Their steps were slow, weighed down by sorrow. But as they neared the burial place, the earth suddenly trembled. A violent earthquake shook the ground beneath them. And then a dazzling light. An angel of Jehovah descended from heaven, his appearance as bright as lightning, his robe shining like snow. The guards standing at the tomb were struck with terror. Their faces paled, their bodies trembled, and then they collapsed to the ground. Like lifeless men, the angel, standing before the massive stone that had sealed the tomb, rolled it away with ease. He turned to the two women and spoke, "Do not be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus, who was executed on the stake. He's not here, for he was raised up, just as he said. Come, see the place where he was lying." The women's eyes widened in astonishment. The tomb was empty. Jesus was gone, not taken but resurrected. The angel continued, "Go quickly and tell his disciples that he was raised up from the dead, and look, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. You will see him there." With hearts pounding, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary turned and ran from the tomb. Fear and overwhelming joy filled them as they rushed to tell the disciples. But then another miracle. As they hurried along the path, suddenly Jesus himself appeared before them. Greetings, he said. The women stopped in their tracks, gasping in disbelief, but as they looked upon him, their eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of pure, overwhelming joy. They fell at his feet, worshiping him. Jesus spoke to them gently, "Do not be afraid. Go, tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." Meanwhile, the guards who had fainted at the sight of the angel regained consciousness. Trembling, they hurried to the chief priests and reported everything that had happened. The priests were in shock. If the people found out that Jesus had risen, it would change everything, so they devised a lie. They gave the soldiers a large sum of money and told them, "Say, his disciples came by night and stole him while we were sleeping. If this gets reported to the governor, we will make sure you don't get into trouble." And so the soldiers took the money and spread the false story. To this day, that lie is still repeated, but the truth was unshakable. The 11 disciples did as Jesus commanded. They went to Galilee, to the mountain where he had arranged to meet them. As they saw him, they bowed down in worship, though some still struggled to comprehend the greatness of what had happened. Then Jesus spoke words that would echo throughout history. "All authority has been given me in heaven and on the earth. Go therefore, and make disciples of people of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all the things I have commanded you. And look, I'm with you all the days until the conclusion of the system of things." And so, the greatest mission began. The tomb was empty. The resurrection was real. Jesus had conquered death, and his promise still stands today.